Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talk About, your usually weekly news show where I, your host, Alex Brown, would gather the top gaming headlines and break them down with you. But of course, if you've been following along, you'll already know that there's just far too many games coming out that I want to do content about. So, news is taking a backseat. There's so many other news sources for you to peruse throughout the internet, but there's only one place where you can get my personal thoughts on all of these games coming out because there are just so many of them. And as you can see, is a very different setup for Talk About. If you watched the test video, quote unquote test video, where I played Party Animals, I mentioned it there, but I don't expect everyone to watch that. So, long story short, I have a new PC which allows me to do far more things, and as you can see, a new show layout is one of those things, which includes my face, which is pretty cool. I don't really show my face much unless I'm doing streams, which you should also check out. But that's besides the point. Those are also going to get a lot better now with this new PC. But anyways, we're not here to talk about all the stuff going on around the channel, around my own development. We're here to talk about, as you can see, Baldur's Gate 3. And I can also see, that's one of the benefits of this new layout. The footage that you are seeing, I am also seeing in real time. So if things happen that I go, oh, right here, let me explain that to you real quick, I can. But yeah. So yeah, Baldur's Gate 3's been out for a really long time. I know, okay? But there are so many games coming out. Too much is happening that I wasn't able to really dive into it until after a lot of my Starfield time. I'm still not done with Starfield, believe it or not, but it's taken a backseat just because if I focus too much on Starfield right now, I'll never get around to any of these other games that are coming out, like Baldur's Gate 3, which I finally got into on the PS5. I am going to specifically be talking about Baldur's Gate 3 from the perspective of a console player because while I do have a new PC now, I didn't have a new PC when Baldur's Gate 3 came out, so played it on PlayStation 5. I'm about 30 hours in. That's about 10 hours on one playthrough that I started in co-op split screen, and a single player co-op or a single player playthrough. I'm at about 20 hours. I've just completed Act 1, or I've left the Act 1 area at least. But yeah, so with that, of course, take everything off with a grain of salt. I have not yet finished the game because, of course, it is massive. I have to, like I just said, I only left Act 1, and I have like 30 hours into this game. There's a lot. There's a lot. And we'll get into all of that. Also, you are going to notice my editing around pauses and stuff more often because, of course, I'm still going to edit out long pauses because no one wants to sit through a long pause. So you'll just see random jump cuts throughout, as you already just saw. I just thought I should, you know, let you know what happened there because, okay, I talk into this mic, I look in this camera, and I talk, but sometimes I gotta find where I gotta find that train of thought. Sometimes it's not on the tracks, and I have to go chase it down real quick. But where I want to start talking about this massive game is that it's comforting, you know? That's the best way I can put it. It feels nostalgic to me in a sense. It reminds me of the classic BioWare games of old, if you will. When I play Baldur's Gate 3, it makes me feel like I'm playing Dragon Age Origins for the first time again. And it makes me feel like games are really good and it's just a really good game. Because there are a lot of games, okay? A lot of games that call themselves role-playing games, RPGs as the kids call them. And all it has is a skill tree. Even some longtime franchises are hardly RPGs anymore. Talking about Final Fantasy 16. That was a video game. But Baldur's Gate 3 is the most RPG you'll ever play. I need to stop moving my hands around. I look like Donald Trump. I'm going to stop. Put him now. Baldur's Gate 3 is the most RPG a game has ever been since the old BioWare games, where just about every choice you make matters. It means something. All these companions, we'll get to that later. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but these companions are great and have actual stories to them and multiple layers to them, and it's just we'll get to that later, but I just wanted to bring it up. You could make a choice, like like how I mentioned earlier. I have two playthroughs at the moment. One that's 10 hours in, one that's 20 hours in, of course 30 hours. One playthrough, they're both playthroughs are completely different from each other in the sense that you are presented with the task of getting that tadpole out of your head. I'm sure you're familiar with it by now. The game's been out for a while. You have heard of the tadpole and stuff or what have you, I'm sure. And there are so many ways to go about that. You could minor spoilers for Act 1, but I mean, it's been out for a while. Come on. There are like 5 choices given to you immediately, at least 5 choices that I can think of off the top of my head. You have the in terms of ways to get it out, you're presented with a lot of choices. They're not necessarily all like definitive paths forward sort of things, but they are all presented to you whether you follow what's her name's face, the Githyanki trail, you follow Halsin's trail, you follow the Tieflings trail. There's just that's 3. I know I miscounted. I said 5. Okay, there's a lot of choices. Okay, and these are the choices that they aren't good and bad choices. They all have their positives and negatives to them. So they're all at least a little bit gray. Although some of them are definitely more light side than bad side. That's for sure. Like you could help the goblins and you could kill everyone, I'm sure. That's it's a good time. There's a lot of choices you can make. And that's what I really like about this game the most so far. The fact that there are so many ways, so many unique ways to play it through this game, whether it be helping the bad guys, the perceived bad guys. They have their points, okay? They have their own points, and they actually make a lot of sense sometimes. Sometimes. Or whether you just want to help out with getting people to where they got to go safely. There's a lot of choices, and it really shapes the way you play the game. It's the type of game that while it is as massive as it is, there are so many different diverging paths with all of your choices that are all taken into account. It's not just a like, oh, you did this, you're going to follow this path the entire way through. Oh, you did this is your path the entire way through. It is always zigzagging up all over the place, and it's a great time. Because one moment you might think, oh, I'm doing the right thing, I'm helping this old lady. And then next minute, old lady, real bad person. She's a real bad person. I won't get into that here, but she's a real bad person, the old lady. Don't trust the old lady. Kill the old lady if you see her. But where was I going with that? Kill old ladies if you see them, of course. But yes, that okay, I found the train. Baldur's Gate 3 is the type of game where I could see myself playing it forever, but not in the same way that I would say I would play Starfield forever, where Starfield, I would play that game forever in the sense that this is my character. I can do this. I can build this outpost to do this and do that and do all these sort of things in this save file and do all of that. I don't know if that made any sense. I hope it did. There's so much you can do in Starfield, is what I mean to say. There's a lot of quests, a lot of just additional content. In Baldur's Gate 3, there is also a lot of content, yes, but not in the same way of Starfield where I'm going to feel like I'm going to spend hundreds of hours just building outposts or something of that nature in a Baldur's Gate. In Baldur's Gate, I feel like I could spend I could spend hundreds of hours in this game, and it would be multiple playthroughs, just multiple playthroughs where I go, hey, this playthrough, I helped him, then I killed her, then I saved these people. What would have happened if I didn't help him? What if I kept her alive? What if I killed this group of people? There are so many variables throughout the game that will have you playing it forever for just the longest time, okay? Until they make Baldur's Gate 4. And given how long it was between Baldur's Gate 2 and Baldur's Gate 3, you'll have enough content out of this game, I'm sure, and enjoyment out of this game that will tide you over until then. Also, Notice in Talk About, I do give a score. I don't know who sticks around long enough for me to give the score, but I want to try to give the score earlier than later so that you can be like, oh, that's the score. Okay, cool, cool. I respect the score. And then you stick around to find out why I gave it that score. I'm already like 10 minutes in, so some people might have already left. Understandable. But the score I'm going to give Baldur's Gate 3 at the moment, as of the time of recording and all that jazz, is a 9 out of 10. Of course, my scale is just 1 through 10, no 0.5s or anything like that. And yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 gets a 9. Of course, because of how great I was just talking about how much of an RPG it is and all that jazz. There are all these systems in place, all of this cool stuff that we'll get into after a word from our sponsor. We don't have sponsors. I don't have a sponsor. It just felt like a really natural thing to say there. I hope it made you laugh. But anyways, 9 out of 10. You might be thinking, wow, that's low, which is absurd to think, I know, because a lot of people are just giving this game a straight up 10 out of 10 and calling it a day. I I feel like that's honestly why I don't feel like it's a 10 out of 10. That sounds like I'm trying to be different. I don't mean it in that way. I mean, everyone kept saying, oh, 10 out of 10 game, 10 out of 10 this, 10 out of 10 that. So I had high expectations going into this game. So when I came into this game, I was met with a numerous, that's the word. I was met with numerous annoyances that stacked up enough bugs and what have you that knocked down the game by 1 point. It's still a 9 out of 10, better than most games this year. Actually, it's it's right in line with most games this year. What am I saying? This is the best year for video game releases. 9 out of 10. That's just par for the course in 2023. But yeah, things. I'll get into my grievances right now. Why not? Get it out of the way so I can just continue to glow about this video game. But yeah, I had just minor grievances. Things like um, I would reload a save and then a mechanic just wouldn't work anymore, and I'd have to reload an earlier save and hope that it works the next time around. That sort of thing. You know, it happens, understandable. In that moment, it didn't hurt too bad because I had a recent autosave, so that was nice. But sometimes that could be real rough. I also feel like the game will oftentimes just thrust you into unwinnable fights, which can be annoying because, you'll be adventuring with your party, yada yada yada, doing whatever, talking to the people, and then out of nowhere, you're ambushed by 17 enemies, or you have a dialogue option that ends up having an entire camp of people against you out of nowhere all of a sudden, and then you're just screwed. And then you have to just reload a save way earlier. And speaking of reloading saves, I want to talk about that the dice mechanic for a second. Of course, Baldur's Gate 3 takes place, Baldur's Gate in general takes place in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, and of course, tabletop RPGs, you roll the dice to see what your outcome is. I'm sure the footage has shown it at some point. I'm currently fighting an ox. I knocked it out because it seemed distressed and I never talked to it again because it was knocked out. But that's irrelevant. I'm talking about the dice, okay? The dice is a cool thing in concept, but I think it's cool in multiplayer. I think you're gonna have a really good time if you're playing this game in co-op, which fully co-op. All of these party members that you can see here on the screen, all of those could be your friends. Well, 3 of them could be your friends. One of them has to be you, of course. And that's the really cool thing. The dice rolls the dice rolls are probably more fun with multiplayer because you're just gonna roll with the punches. But for me in a single player game, and I know I'm not the only one because everyone's been save scumming with this video game. For me, I find it just it's an inconvenience, the dice roll. Whenever I'm looking in the options menu here. That's weird. Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, the dice rolls when you're doing a single player game, you set your character a certain way, and you specialize in certain skills and speech checks, that sort of thing, and you just hope that it works. Okay, and you want the game to go this certain way. you want to be able to have a silver tongue and smooth talk your way through most scenarios. So you roll that dice on persuade, and you invested points into persuasion. Persuasion efficiency, I believe, is what it's called. So you would expect that to, pay off. But then out of nowhere, you need to roll a 15, but you roll a 6. And then you only have a speech proficiency of like 2 plus 2 plus 3. And then you're just like, well, now I'm going to reload the save. And I'm not the only one. I know a lot of people are save scumming, is what the kids call it. You know? And yeah, it's unfortunate because I wouldn't mind it as much if the load times on PS5 are faster. They are not fast. They are very much. They feel like a hard drive rather than a solid state drive sort of thing. You know what I mean? Still back on HDD, no SSD. That's what it feels like. It feels like I'm playing a last. Okay, whoa! I almost said something that sounded awful. I was about to say it feels like I'm playing a last gen game. I didn't mean that in terms of the game itself. I meant that in terms of the loading screens. You understand where I'm coming from. You know what I mean. But yeah, things like that, and also minor annoyances like whenever there's a gap you could jump over, you press up on the D-pad on PlayStation and then you could jump over it. And then maybe your companions will jump with you. Maybe you have to go to your companion and make them jump themselves. And then the people on the Okay, so let me paint you a little picture, okay? This is me. This is my companion, okay? I jump over to see, this is great that I can have my webcam out and I can do this. But anyways, so this is me and my companion, okay? Me and my companion. I jump over a gap, and then I continue on journeying, and my companion will just stay on the other side, and they don't follow me, and that's annoying. Then I have to switch my character to my companion to make them jump the gap. While this happens, though, my player character will be like, "Oh, I have to go back to where the actual player is," and then they jump back, and then I have to switch, and it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. I hope I painted a clear picture there. It's a whole thing. But that's all I have to say in terms of annoyances, minor grievances, the things that bring it down 1 point for me. But let's talk about all the other great things that are in this video game. Let's talk about the companions. Let's talk about Shadowheart. You know what I mean? Talk about Shadowheart and everyone else, of course, but mostly Shadowheart because she's usually the one I talk to the most. But all of them, all of the ones. I mean, I've spoken to Shadowheart, Karlach, and Gale. I keep calling him Will, which is not correct because Will is the other guy. Apologies, but this is the crew I usually run with. Except lately, I've been running with Lae'zel a little bit, and Lae'zel is kind of really, really good at combat. Okay, she's really good at combat. Okay, did I mention combat? I did. Oh, I didn't mention it really. I talked about how sometimes you'll be thrown into unwinnable scenarios. It feels. I'll do combat in a second. I'm talking about companions right now, okay? So Shadowheart, Karlach, and Gale is usually who I'm running with. Lae'zel, lately, she's been killing it, though, so maybe we're going to have to reconfigure some things. But, yeah, these companions are great. Like, if you watched my Starfield video, talk about video, I don't remember which one, I did 2 of them. In one of them, maybe in both of them, I talked about how these are probably the best Bethesda companions have ever been. But of course, they still don't hold a candle to BioWare companions, classic BioWare companions. Baldur's Gate 3, it's it's on par with the classic BioWare, if not better, because they're just so great, And it makes me like, of course, playing Starfield and then playing Baldur's Gate. It makes me directly compare the two. Okay, and these companions are so far and away more interesting than Sarah Morgan. I'm sorry, Sarah Morgan, you're still the love of my life in that video game, but not. But I mean, Shadowheart's, you know. Woo, woo. Let's talk about that romance for one quick second. Also, yeah. Also, that reminds me of a bug that I did face where Shadowheart's first romance scene played a second time, which was weird. I don't know why that happened. It was a bug, I guess, but it was weird that it happened. Because it was really exciting because she came to me and was like, "Hey, you want to get away?" That was the same thing I already saw. But yeah. Anyways, my Bluetooth speaker just turned off. But anyways, I really like how so far so far at least. Just I'm only been doing a little flirt with Shadowheart. Okay, because she's the greatest. You'll see her in a second here. I've seen this footage. Of course, I made this footage. You'll see her in a second. She says, "Don't open the door. They don't want an audience." Spoilers. But yeah, Shadowheart. I really like so far how natural the romance aspects of this game feel, as, at least directly comparing it to Starfield. Where in Starfield, it's like, hey, select, see, there she goes, select this option to flirt, and then you flirt, and then they go, oh, and they say something else. It feels so much more natural in this video game because it doesn't say in parentheses flirt or in parentheses or it's not like a heart in like a BioWare game or anything like that. It's just you're just picking your dialogue options, and then sometimes they'll like you more based on what you say, just like in real life. And it's been really natural in that sense. And the fact that it's not immediately just it's I don't know why I did that, but yeah, it paints the picture. You know what that is, okay? But yeah, it's not immediately just that. It is, hey, let's hang out. Let's go drink some wine on a cliff, have a little kiss, and then continue on our adventures, and then we'll talk sometimes. And it doesn't feel just like how I feel like how BioWare games romance options have gotten, where it's mostly just focusing on the portion of it and not necessarily the actual relationship of it. And that feels really cool in this game, which makes me kind of sound sad, but it's a fantasy video game for a reason, am I right? Anyways, yeah, companions, great, love them. Shadowheart, I don't know, people, when the game came out of early access, there was a lot of talk around town. People like, oh, Shadowheart, I could fix her. I don't think she's broken. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't know. I don't know. She has some valid points. She has a lot of valid points. Just take the time to get to know her, okay? Okay. She's. I don't know. I don't know where that's coming from. I don't know. She's really. I like her a lot. She's cool. Very pretty. Anyways, companions are cool. They're great. Karlach, pretty cool. She scares me a little bit because I was just talking to her one night and she said, verbatim quote. I quote. She said, God, I want to ride you until you see stars. I was like, I beg your pardon, ma'am? What? And that scared me. That scared me. Because she was very, very straightforward with me and straight to the point. It was scary. Because I guess she falls more in line with, what people expect from these sort of games. But that's why it scared me, I guess. And it's really scary because she's very much into me and I'm very much into Shadowheart. It's a whole thing. You gotta play this video game, okay? I haven't mentioned that. You need to play this video game. It's out on PS5 now. It's out on PC now. It'll be on Xbox apparently this year. There's been no indication of that, but they said this year. We'll see. But yeah. Companions are cool. Gale as well. He's just a nice guy. He's just a nice guy. You know? Nice guy. Oh, Astarion. People are very thirsty for that guy. Let me pull up the other footage I have. Where is it? How do I do this? Boop. Gameplay number 2. Right. Okay. There's Will. Shout out to Will. Astarion. Everyone's thirsting over this vampire elf man guy. And he's mean. He's an evil guy, okay? I'll be oftentimes be doing a nice thing and he's like, oh, you really were doing the nice thing? And I'm like, come on, be nice. He doesn't vibe with me. I'm a nice guy. I always play these games nice. I don't know if you've noticed that about me yet. Anytime I talk about games, I'm always playing a good-natured character. I feel like a lot of people play villains a lot of the times, and he's definitely in line with that sort of playstyle. I do wonder, I haven't been like rolling with him. I do wonder if you could sort of like soften his heart sort of thing. And that'd be pretty cool. I wonder if people look at him like the Shadow Heart way and like, oh, I could fix him. Maybe that's what's going on. And also, let me go and fast forward this video clip. Yeah, as you saw there, I let him suck me off a little bit. That sounded bad, but you understand what I mean. I skipped all of his dialogue there, but he made a very good point. He was sounded like he was having a rough time, and then I let him, I let him do it. I let him suck me, and kind of liked it. But then, and then I woke up and I had a debuff like for 24 hours. It's terrible. But we're gonna go and okay, that's enough. That's enough. Fast forward this. Fast forward this. Let's fast forward this to see dice rolls. Okay. Okay, let's talk about combat. We fast forwarded to a moment in my recording of combat. Let's talk about the combat. Combat, it's fun. It's like XCOM, okay? It's a lot like XCOM. I know it's based on D&D with the actual like dice roll. You're rolling a dice for each of your sort of attacks. You don't actually roll it each time. It's like it's done internally. The game does it for you. You don't actually have to roll a dice each time. It's just automatic. Like your percentages are like on your dice, you have a higher chance. You understand. But it just feels like XCOM. If you aren't familiar with D&D, as I am, it's just XCOM. And it's really fun. Except for when you are thrown into unwinnable scenarios. But yeah, although Karlach, I'm gonna be honest with you, Karlach, she's supposed to be my heavy hitter, but she misses like 80% of her attacks, okay? And Lae'zel has been hitting like 90% of her attacks, so we might do a little swap. Lae'zel's a little abrasive, but she hits her target at least. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's essentially XCOM, and there's a lot of strategy involved, which is fun. You know, I didn't even talk about the classes. Of course, everyone has different classes. Like Shadowheart's a cleric, where she has healing abilities. Oh, is she about to heal right now? She is. Look at that. I knew it. But yeah, different abilities like that, and makes you it encourages you to have a variety of people on your party at different times, so that you are well balanced in these attacks combat scenarios. That's what the kids call them. My bad. But yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I really have to talk about when it comes to Baldur's Gate 3. I did it. This is an actual like normal length video instead of being an hour long, because where there is a lot to talk about in Baldur's Gate 3. I look like I'm tied up. I'm sorry. While there is a lot to talk about in Baldur's Gate 3, similar there is a lot to talk about in Baldur's Gate 3, just like there is a lot to talk about in Starfield. The difference between the two is that most of the things that you can talk about in Baldur's Gate are story related, and they can be kind of spoilery because there are a lot of, different variables, like I mentioned earlier at the top. The different variables of your quest lines, the way you tackle the main story could be very different from the way your friend tackles the main story. So there's a lot to talk about there. And of course, I'm not gonna do a Mortal Kombat 11 on you. Our Mortal Kombat 1, I misspoke. Okay, don't hurt me in the comments below. I'm not gonna do the whole story, at least Act 1. That's as far as I am. I'm not gonna do that beat by beat because there's a lot of beats. Okay, that's a lot of beats going on, a lot of beating. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about Baldur's Gate 3. It's a really good time. If you aren't already playing Baldur's Gate 3, why not? You should. Is it because of the turn-based XCOM system? Let's talk about that for one quick moment. I know I was about to wrap up, but that's a good point, actually. It's something I should bring up. I don't usually play games like this. I usually am more, hey, I don't like turn-based. I would much rather prefer real-time combat. I'd like to actually press the X button and it swings a sword, or it's the bumper these days, and swing a sword. I would much rather do that than I attack you, you attack me, I attack you, that sort of thing. But because of just the entire vibe of this game, I feel like it's won me over, okay? It's won me over in this sense, okay? Because it's also not like a JRPG. It's more like XCOM in the way that, as you can see, you move here, I attack you there, you do this attack, hopefully I hit, that sort of thing. That's always been fun to me. But I just pulled a hair out if you were wondering what just happened. It was in my eye. But yeah. If you feel like this combat system isn't for you and it's going to detract you from the game, you can turn the difficulty down. There's no shame in that. Okay, you can turn the difficulty down. I'm sure there's a lot of guides out there on how to build a very powerful character. Put Lae'zel on your team. You know, I just feel like everyone needs to experience. This is a game that everyone should play. Okay, that's high praise. So you should, you should. Yeah, it's a type of game that I wouldn't want people to just be like, oh, I don't like turn-based RPGs. I don't like that sort of thing. So they're just gonna miss out on one of the best games of the year. Don't do that. Play it. Check it out for yourself. I know $60, $70 is a lot to ask to try a game because there's no demo. They should do demos more. But it's really good, okay? Once you get into it as well, because that's another thing. I'm glad I kept going because there's a lot still to talk about in terms of combat. That's the one thing that I've noticed. I don't know whether it's because I've, switched my gear or I've just been leveling up. Also, leveling up takes really long. I don't know if that's like a D&D thing that's carried over into this game or not, but it takes a long time. But that's not the point. Earlier levels are definitely more difficult than when you get into higher levels because most of the time, I feel I would miss most of my attacks. But as I've leveled up, I'm now level 6. This footage shows me on what, level 3? What does this footage show me? Yeah, I'm level 3 in this footage, but I'm currently level 6, and I'm hitting so many more of my attacks. I have more options for attacks, and it's great because there are the... When you start off the game, it's just, I attack you, I can move, and I have a secondary attack. Later on, you can eventually get 2 attacks, and that's been a real game changer for me. The 2 attack thing is really a big deal, okay? I really like being able to attack twice. It's great. Because sometimes you leave an enemy with 1 health left, and you're like, ugh, now they're going to hit me and almost kill me, probably. But you get 2 hits, it's a great time. It's a great time. But yeah, the game definitely starts out harder, but it gets easier. And also, the normal difficulty is still really hard. But yeah, especially in those unwinnable scenarios. I don't think I have any of those unwinnable scenarios on recording footage, but there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them. Some of them you'll turn to Google, and I did, and I felt good about it because I won, and it was a really hard victory, hard fought victory. But yeah, now I can officially say that I'm done. Right? I feel like I am. If I'm not, you'll see another video talking about bring Baldur's Gate 3. But yeah, at the end of the day, 9 out of 10, because of course there were the annoyances that could be remedied by the time people play it on, I guess, Xbox. That's the last place for it to release. So, hey, and maybe I'll buy it again on Xbox because I prefer playing games on Xbox. Although, now that I say that out loud, probably not because I am just about completely out of storage on my Xbox. So thank God that it's not on Xbox yet. Otherwise, I don't know how I would balance all of those games on there. But yeah, that's all I have to say about Baldur's Gate 3 at the moment. The console experience, if you will. 30 hours of it. It's a great time. 9 out of 10. Great story. Great characters. Great pathways, choices, all of that. It's the best. It's everything you could ask for from an RPG. The footage is about, and let me back it up because I skipped around. It's the best. It's an RPG player's wet dream, and a lot of people's, just a lot of people's wet dream. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm in the dice roll, but there he is. That was something. I feel like that would feel good. You know. I feel like if it's the kind of vampire that doesn't turn you into a vampire when it bites you, I feel like I would just to see what it feels like, just once. Let me know in the comments below if you would let a vampire suck you off, or suck your blood. I mean, And yeah. Also, let me know in the comments below what you think of the new setup. If you like this format for Talk About, I like it a lot. So if you don't like it, it's gonna stay. But if there are like tweaks or things that you think could enhance it, I would be open to hearing that in the comments below. Also, hit the like button. I should have said it way earlier, but hit the like button. I really appreciate that. The like button, the comment button, the subscribe button, all of those. All of those things for engagement. Also, you get a trophy if you let the vampire bite you, so it's a great time. What just happened? Am I still live? Anyways, I was wrapping up the video and then it sort of just crashed for a second, but everything is fine. Everything is great still. Don't worry about it. I was saying engage with this video in all the ways that you can, whether it's the like button, the subscribe button, the comment button, the share button, even all of those buttons. Press them. See what they do. The bell button. I've heard people talk about the bell button. It all helps out with engagement and it helps the algorithm. It makes the algorithm like me. And when the algorithm likes me, have a good time. So yeah, that's all. So yeah, do that. Tell me what you think of the new setup. I'm recapping because, of course, I did have technical difficulties there for a second, so I don't know what I've said already. But yeah, do that. Would you let the vampire bite you? Let me know all of that stuff and more in the comments below. And until next time, you know what games are coming out around the corner. I'll tell you now. The next talk about is going to be about Cyberpunk 2077 2.0. You want to talk about that? Tell me something about it in the comments below. No spoilers. No spoilers. But tell me like your impressions of it in the comments below, because yeah, that's what the next video will be. If you want to be featured in it, I'll pull your comment from this video. But yeah, all that sort of stuff, do all that, and until the next video, stay safe and play some video games.